Friday. Thank you for joining us. For decades, the ongoing stats has been showing that about 50% of marriages end in divorce. We recently spoke on IG Live with Coach Dea about coping with divorce. If you're interested in watching this video, please click our reel feed to watch at any time. This live is sort of a two-part of that discussion, part two of that discussion. We're going to discuss how to manage moving on after divorce. During this live, we're going to discuss how to get over anxiety over entering the dating scene, ways to incorporate what you learned from your marriage into a new relationship or from past relationships, and how to break new relationships to friends and family. So I saw Coach.
Hello, hi, Coach Dana. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us again.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here. I'm just adjusting the volume. How are you?
Your hair looks amazing.
Oh, thank you. It takes work. So how have you been? How was your week since we spoke?
Crazy week, but happy that it's Friday and it's a long weekend.
Yes, I get it. Yeah. So let me just see. Can you hear me okay? I feel like the sound is a little low. Okay. Great. So how did you want to start? I had a little disclaimer that I want to start with. And for those people that are joining now, or they might watch this later. So I noticed that there was a comment in one of the posts that either you shared or I shared. And I wanted to address that to open up this live with this very important statement that I'm about to make. So when we are coaches for relationships and we talk, and I personally talk to a lot of women who have gone through some of the experiences that I've had concerning divorce, in no way, shape, or form as a coach, or if I'm counseling someone or dealing with trauma as a certified facilitator, I don't ever endorse and encourage divorce. Okay. I know that we can have different perspectives when it comes from a spiritual standpoint. From a spiritual standpoint, a lot of people may argue that God hates divorce. And I don't disagree with that. I just think that God also hates domestic abuse. He hates alcoholism. He hates infidelity. So I think we need to look at the whole picture. And I love how you responded to the comment that was made that marriage is forever. And yes, ideally it would be, because that should be the way it is. But also marriage should be about a commitment and a love that doesn't break someone, right, in ways that are unfathomable. So many people are going through some situations that are very hard to discuss and talk about. And sometimes the only window out and back to themselves is by having a divorce. And I know that this is a sad part of life for a lot of people, myself included. I think many of us grieve the losing the dynamics of having a family together. But that doesn't mean that we don't deserve to be happy and deserve to have a new life filled with new experiences, because I also believe that when we're happy, and that God sees that as well, and he wants us to live in the world and the best life that we can live so that we can impact others. So consider that if you stayed in a relationship that didn't serve you, because there were some of those subjects that are actually mentioned on the Bible concerning domestic violence, alcoholism, or infidelity, that it's not approved by the church, that person would have been trapped in a relationship and therefore would not show up in the world in a way that God designed for them. So just think about that. I know it was a lot to digest, but I didn't want to have this discussion about moving on from divorce. Leave people thinking that this is something that I'm like, yay, let's do it. It's not about that. I'm not endorsing divorce. What I'm doing is talking to the people that need my help, people that are benefiting from my own pain, my own experience, that I can, with the training that I received, that I can guide them into a place of wholesomeness to live a better life, therefore impacting their children, their family, the people around them, and their community in a way that it was designed for them, and the way that God wants for us. God wants us to have abundance in life. And this isn't about spirituality. This is not a spiritual discussion. This is really about us as human beings having a place on earth. So wanted to open up with this big statement. I know it was a lot to digest, so take those into consideration. And I'm ready for your questions. And if anyone who's joining have a question, please let us know. And I know that many people probably won't join right now, but when you watch this live later on, also leave your comments. And if you have any questions, you can DM me at Coaching with Day, and I'll be happy to respond to your questions.
This is super, super well said. And I think it's regardless of whether it's under the religious context or not. This is well said. I mean, it applies regardless if you're religious or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to fire my questions.
Go
So,
ahead.
you know, we know everybody, or because today we're talking about moving on. So we know everyone is different. But how long do you think, on average, divorcees grieves before they feel they are ready to move forward?
You know, as we mentioned in the live, the past live, you know, divorce is an experience unique to everyone. Everybody has a setting that is different from the next person. So I think it's really a personal thing. I think that ideally you would give some time for yourself to get out of the rebound, to get out of that phase of grieving, right? I think you can grieve a long time, but yet somewhere in between, maybe a lot of times we get out of grief when we have grieved for a while, and then we start a new relationship later on. And I do recommend at least keeping yourself 6 to 8 months just to sort of settle back to yourself. And a lot of times you may even make a decision to move on with another relationship, but not yet finished grieving. There are many people who experience trauma in relationships, and they get to carry that trauma for a long time, long before they've already gone divorced for 6 months or 8 months, and now they are in a really new relationship. And this is the part that worries me, you see, because if the divorce is not a transitional event that allows you to go from this time of your life where you aren't happy into happiness and wholeness, you know, you're carrying the trauma with you. And now I'm concerned if you're choosing relationships and choosing your partners from a place of void, not value, from a place of trauma, not wholeness. And this is where I get a little bit like, okay, hopefully people experience, they give themselves the 6 to 8 month time to just sort of heal, get back to yourself. Then once you decide to move on, some people actually overcome the grief because they're out again, they're smiling again, they're happy again. Some people, they'll stay in that place of trauma for a long time, or some people stay in a place of regret for a long time, and that weighs the new relationship down, because it's almost like this. Think of putting a backpack of regrets, a big backpack of sorrow on before you say hello to your partner in the morning. There is always in the back of your subconscious and in the back of your mind and your subconscious. And that's something that really needs to be paid attention to. A lot of people aren't aware of that. So recommendations, take 6 to 8 months, you know, until you can make a decision to enter a new relationship with someone else, and consider that that person will be completely unaware of your pain.
What are some signs that you might actually be ready to enter the dating field again? So, you know, what are the signs that you can look out for, say, telling yourself that you're ready?
I think a telling sign is, are you happy with yourself? Would you be your partner? You see, because when you start to love yourself and you're living the life that you feel, okay, I got this, I'm happy, I would be my friend, I would be my partner, I would be my companion. We can never show up for someone else until we're ready to be who we came here to be. I think that it is, sometimes people start relationship and they're hoping that by being with someone that they admire or like, that they can pull themselves out of that place, and they never can. You see, your life is yours to live. You have to live the life you came here to live. If you're happy, whole, and healthy, and you have a partner, that's great. It'll be an amazing exchange. If you're hoping to draw from that person to become happy, you'll never be happy. At the very least, you can experience some moments of joy and happiness, but will you ever be happy or live the life that you're meant to live? And most importantly, you will not be able to reciprocate and contribute to the relationship on the same level. So I would say, you know you're ready when you're ready to be alone, when you're happy, fulfilled on your own, and you say, hey, I would be a great partner. You know, I'm worthy. I'm happy. I'm healthy. I'm strong. I think we need to show up for ourselves first.
What about someone if they feel, feeling anxiety, about dating again? What advice do you have for them?
Well, I mean, if you don't feel some kind of anxiety, I mean, I think anxiety is such a taboo, right? There's such a stigma about anxiety. I think anxiety is part of life. And I tell you why, because for these life events, it takes courage. Anytime you change something, you have to have courage. Now, there's no courage without fear. And fear brings anxiety, fear of the unknown, fear of how you're going to feel, fear if you're going to be rejected, or fear that that person might not be the right person. You invest in the wrong relationship. I think everybody will experience some level of fear and anxiety, but focus that you're being courageous and putting yourself out there. What is the worst thing that can happen, right? And the very least, remember that you're going to be learning from this experience no matter what. You're going to walk out with a new insight. You're going to be able to recognize whether you can see the red flags sooner than later and stay and make the same mistakes. Here's what happens when people don't do the work for themselves. They're highly likely to enter the relationship as if the relationship was a box. In that box, you go in and out of the same box with different people doing the same things over and over, and they never realize really what's going on. Ask yourself, how am I taking part in this situation? How am I taking part in this exchange? Am I showing up the way that I am, complete, whole, happy, healthy, strong, confident? Because if you are, you're likely to attract people like-minded. Yeah. If you're not, you're going to attract some things that are going to trigger your places of trauma and unhealed parts of your life. Mm-hmm. And you're going to relive the same things. So, and I know this is a very common thing. This is why I think that when people go from first marriages to second marriages, if they don't do the time to find themselves, to be whole again, a lot of people even stay divorced for a long time, like I did. And then when they remarried, I was married for 20 years the second time, but ended up not staying married after all. And, I felt that once I was divorced the second time, I had courage to find out what was my role in my pain. What did I do or didn't do? And it's still not a perfect world, okay? It's in the healing part it's the part that you get to have an understanding about what happened and how you played a part in that life event. And I think that if you grasp that, you're much more likely to execute courage, to navigate the relationship with grace, giving your partner and yourself grace, understanding that even though you may be healed and be in a season that you're happy, it's never perfect. We're not perfect people. And it's okay. And it's embracing that there are going to be bumps on the road. There are going to be bumps on your own awareness, right? In the process of finding out who you are and giving yourself grace in those moments. Yes, you're going to experience anxiety. My advice is flow with it. Remember that when you're having anxiety is because you have fear. And when you have fear is because you have courage. Mm-hmm. Have courage. That's another way to look at it. Change the narrative, okay? Don't focus so much on what it's not. Think about what it is, what it actually is.
Anxiety is one thing. Some people might also feel a sense of guilt, like they're doing something wrong to their ex or, they're moving on too fast. How can we work through these like guilty feelings?
Well, you have to ask yourself, where are those questions coming from, right? If you think, am I moving too fast? Are you? What is the timeline you've given yourself? You see, if we decide, like I said, everyone is different. For some people, 6 to 8 months is ideal. As a coach, I actually think it is. But for somebody else, they've already been in a relationship and they had an amicable situation. They were already agreed to get divorced and they moved on with their lives. They were busy. So when they actually get the divorce, within 3 months, they're ready to date. So you have to know your situation and know what is it that you can part ways with. And what are some of the new things you want to implement, such as, okay, this is my timeline. I'm going to give myself 3 months. After 3 months, I'm going to go on 2 dates. After 6 months, I'll go on a couple more. Within the year, I want to have a partner. You need to ask yourself those questions. What are the things that you're actually questioning that's making you feel like, am I doing this the right way? Am I hurting him, my ex, or am I moving too soon? Try to have a conversation with yourself from a place of honesty. Okay, what is actually causing those questions to come up? Are you comparing yourself with your friend who just got divorced a year ago and the horror stories that were told to you, or that soap opera that you've been watching? Try to think about what's real and what's not real. Okay, a lot of times we are comparing our reality with people's appearance. We don't know what's going on. And then we tend to compare, oh, maybe I'm like that a little bit. You hear stories. I actually heard a story from a client that actually had a relationship with a narcissist, right? And as she was in the process of the breakup, she started questioning, am I a narcissist? Because she started listening to all these videos and I see myself in this. maybe I am the narcissist. Okay. So don't make the story about the other person thinking that it's you who's doing it. And this is what happens a lot of times when we're dealing with narcissistic relationships. We end up thinking that it's us. Everything gets turned and we start to think maybe it's me who did this or so don't do that. Okay. Don't do that. Stay focused. Stay focused on your goals as far as a relationship is concerned. Also, another thing that I advise is take a little piece of paper and write about your dream partner, even if he's not there. I have a dear friend of mine who is writing letters to her husband to be. She's not even dating, you see, but she started writing those letters. She started envisioning that person, the types of dates they're going to have. I think it's beautiful. Write a book. Not write a book. I meant write in a journal. Write something. Write a book if you want. But what I'm saying is write about this event, this season of your life. Embrace it. Celebrate it. Celebrate being single. It's okay. It's okay to be happy on your own. If there's nothing wrong with being single. One of my mentors, Dr. Michelle McKinney-Hammond, who is also a relationship expert, she writes about it. And she says, if you come from desperation, it'll hinder discernment, meaning you're going to lose sight of everything that you need to understand in order to navigate this season of your life with grace in such a way that you attract the right partner. So don't be desperate. There's nothing wrong with being single. It's okay. And by the way, the truth is not everyone gets to get married again or get married ever. And it's okay. So your job is to be happy, whole, and healthy. Find you. Remember, I said that in the first one. I think I said it. Find you and everything else will follow. Find you so that you're happy, whole, and healthy. If you have a partner, great to get to share that side of you. If you don't have a partner, you're happy, whole, and healthy. Focus on that.
I love it. I love it. So even if the divorce isn't, quote unquote, your fault, do you think that there are also lessons to learn from the divorce that people should incorporate into their future relationships?
Absolutely. I think that every day, every single thing that happens has more to do with how you take part. So one of the things that I like to focus when I work with divorced women, some of my clients, they're always focusing on, well, it wasn't my fault this, or he did that, or I know that I had a part in this, or I did this wrong or that wrong. It's important to recognize your role in your pain, okay? Not to place blame, but to identify the areas that you need to work on. There's always two sides of the story. I believe the divorce is not ever because of one person, unless there is physical, emotional, and mental abuse. I think those are extreme scenarios. So generally speaking, when there are two people, there are two sides of the story. There's two ways that we choose to engage. And it's not uncommon that people would sort of withdraw based on something that was done to them. And that withdrawal, that part of them that decides to withdraw from the relationship is a role in their pain, because it's going to create a chain of events. If you are removed from the relationship, it's going to cause a chain reaction of sorts. And your partner then, well, I'm not going to try that because the person is not engaging with me in a certain manner. I think that you need to be conscious about that. Okay. And also, I think that absolutely 100% there are lessons moving forward, but don't put too much focus on that, because again, when you enter a new relationship, you're going to be dealing with that person's past, that person's trauma, that person's whatever phase season they're in. So even though you can carry some of the lessons of to do what not to do, you may not be dealing with a partner that even has anything to do with your previous partner. So it's a whole new ball game. Hold on to the experiences and the lessons, yes, so you won't make some of the same mistakes, but don't expect that everything is going to look the same, because it isn't. Every time you do something with someone else, it's going to be a different experience.
You almost answered my next question. My next question is, what are the things that you can do if you notice some of your old relationship patterns start to creeping up? Whether it's the new person showing, some red flags, or your own behaviors, such as, doing things that used to drive your ex crazy. What are some tips for that?
I have one advice. Talk about it. Communicate. Communicate in a way that says, I may be triggered. I may be experiencing this because this happened to me before. Be upfront about your feelings, okay? And it's so important that in this process of conversation and of a new relationship, that you 100% and absolutely don't let it be an attack for yourself. In other words, don't set yourself up for failure when you're trying to communicate with someone you say you love by being defensive, by being aggressive, by going to name calling, or by making assumptions and being so stuck up on what you think that you can't even see what that person's trying to offer. Because 9 times out of 10, when you're coming from a place of trigger, let's say you're triggered, but you didn't voice that, but you're trying to say something, you just don't know how. You're both in the same position. You're both feeling either misunderstood or at a loss for words, or kind of like under the influence of the past, right? So I think if you are aware of it, you can have an honest conversation with grace and give each other that same, give each other that space. Oftentimes, I see relationships fall apart because as actually the biggest reason why people end up breaking up. It's their styles of resolving conflict. And I think I might have touched that on the other one. And what I suggest is that, I also observe that by the time you're done fighting, you're not fighting about you didn't walk the dog, you didn't take the trash out. You're fighting because you said this in a certain way, you hurt my feelings, or you said something that it's inappropriate, or you got defensive and you threw in a towel, didn't want to talk to me, you avoided me, neglected me. So we ought to look at the way we're treating each other in these conversations and perhaps let our ego out of it. Get the ego to go out the window. Ego does not belong with healthy relationships and healthy communication. If you have a problem with defensiveness and ego, you're going to ruin your relationship. You need to be very humble. Okay. Evolvement is not some big word that you go to school to get and acquire. We can read about relationships. We can learn about how it's supposed to be or not supposed to be. In the moment of a fight, if you're evolved, the main thing that you're going to display is emotional humility. Emotional humility will allow you to be vulnerable, will allow you to talk to your partner from a place of, I'm trying to understand this. Okay. There's no need for throwing yourself around and all of that stuff. And I think it's important because, again, we talk about trust in relationship as being even more important than love, right? Trust is a safe place. You have to show up trustworthy. What does that mean? So your partner is not afraid of expressing themselves because they know you're going to blow up and get defensive, or everybody's walking on eggshells. Please pay attention to this. It's so important. It's so important. A part of us growing as a relationship as with a partner involves more humility than certainty. We don't know how it's going to turn out. So if you are having issues and you're feeling like you're going back to the old patterns, or your partner is saying something, talk about it. Ask questions. It's okay. It's okay to feel insecure and doubtful. There's no problem with that. We need to show up vulnerable, men and women, especially men, because men, I feel like, unfortunately for men, society doesn't make it okay for them to show up vulnerable. And I feel like if perhaps we could start the conversation about vulnerability from a place of, you're vulnerable, and instead of feeling like you're weak, right? Because that's what we think. Well, if I show up vulnerable, or I cry, or I break down, and I'm honest about how I'm feeling, they're going to think I'm not a man enough, or all of that stuff. No, let's talk about it differently. Let's write a new narrative here and say that a vulnerability is sexy. It is.
Totally.
Because it makes room for honesty. And when you're honest with your partner, you're going to be closer. So you go from contention to closeness, right? To connection. Think about connection. Think about connecting. So when you are trying to resolve conflict with your partner, don't pursue a solution to the problem. Pursue each other's heart. Keep each other's heart in mind and get that ego out of the way, because that's the romance killer right there.
Yeah. So now you're in a new relationship. How do you break this news to friends and family, especially if your last marriage didn't end so smoothly?
To introduce the new relationship, I would say, you know what, take your time with that, because I like to say that it's important to keep, to some extent, keep some privacy in the initial stages as you're trying to figure things out, right? When you start in a relationship, there's a whole phase of adaptation, right? First, you have the romance, and then you start to recognize things about each other. Then there is adaptation, depending on your circumstance. Some people start a relationship and they're having a long distance. Some people they live in the same town. And so everybody's in on it. They see you together. Some people aren't living in the same town, or maybe they live in different neighborhoods, so people don't get to witness what they do with their private lives. I believe that's best to keep private at first. And again, because everybody's different, it kind of depends on how you are with your family. I think everybody will have a different experience. But at the very least, give yourself a little phase of, okay, there's just the two of us for this beginning stage. And then we can go on and talk to each other about when it feels right to do so. The most important thing is to agree on when to do it, so that one person If you disagree, one person wants to do it 3 months, the other wants to wait 6 months. How about 4 months?
Yeah.
Compromise. Go in the middle, 5 months. Okay. So it's important to continue that communication open.
Assuming this also applied to if you want to break this new relationship to kids, to your children.
I think with the children, it's important to actually be in a place where at least you think this person will be, first of all, a good partner to be, a part of your kids' lives. That's super important. A lot of times when people enter relationships, they're thinking of what they need in that season. But if they have kids, it has to fit the whole scenario, right? So if your partner doesn't have children, is he adaptable? Is he okay with the dynamics of a family life? These are they all happen through conversations. So until you're sure, until you're sure that this is the person, then if it feels right, again, I think everybody's different. There's like no set time. As long as you have given yourself enough time to get to know the person, I think it's adequate to say that, do what it feels right. And you will know, because when it feels right, when the right time is.
Well said. Wow. Navigating this still hard, because if for someone who's, just finishing a relationship or divorce, if someone wants to work with you, how can they work with you?
Oh, you mean personally as a coach? Yes. So they can reach me at coachingwithdea@gmail.com. They can send me an email. If you look on one of my recent posts, I think I have my business phone number, and there you can find me on Google at Coaching with Dea. Or you can send me a DM and say, hey, I want to work with you. I offer different packages. I offer a free discovery call with no commitment to sign up. It's just to see where you are. Every time I do a discovery call, I'm just going to warn you, people want to stay. They want to work because I make it all about my clients. It's a process of self-discovery. I want to know where you are and how do you think you can benefit from something like this? My main advice is make time for you. Okay. A lot of the women that I work with say, I've always taken care of everybody, my kids, my husband, my house, my this, my work, my boss. And now I feel like I've not done enough things for myself. I actually have a course that I'm about to relaunch called My Second Chance. We did that last year. And in that course, I start by saying we divorce ourselves long before we divorce our partners. Partners being your husband or your boss or your family dynamics, or the church or God, or, you partner up with the enemy sometimes and believes in lies, right? But we are starting this new season of relationship already. Or leaving the relationship, I meant to say, the one that's about to break. If you really think about it, I know I did. You divorced yourself before you even got to the place where you had to leave that relationship. So I think it's really important to keep in mind that it's your season, it's your time. Make time for you. I am working with a beautiful lady right now who is divorced, and she's a social worker. She does, so many things for other people. And she said, my friends have been telling me you do so much for everybody else. How about doing something for you? So this journey has been so rewarding for both her and I, because I get to say, hey, you know what? I get to validate what she has done so far, but I also get to say, hey, let's focus on you now. Let's make this time for you. And it's so exciting to see once you start to accept that you deserve it, right? About receiving is about positioning yourself to receive, being in a season. We live life as women preparing for everything, making sure we have everything in place, but we never say, let me position myself to receive from the place of unknown. Start a new season in your life where you can actually do something you haven't done for yourself. Put yourself first. Take care of you first. Why? Because if you're on an airplane and something really bad happens, then those masks are going to drop, and they're going to say, put your mask on first. Okay. So you can take care of your children and your fellow passengers. It's the same thing with life. Put your mask on first. Okay. Take care of you first so that you show up ready to exchange your life with someone else. If this is in the cards for you, if you're looking for a relationship and you're envisioning a partner, you got to be that person that you're wanting to attract. Okay, a lot of women sit there and they're like, well, I want the man to do this and this for me and help me, save me, do for me. No. Do for yourself. Find yourself. Show up ready. I guarantee you that relationship is going to be much healthier, okay? Because you won't be codependent. This is where people get into codependency. If they come from a relationship where they felt neglected, the next relationship, if they don't do work on themselves, if they don't learn to give themselves permission to be healthy, whole, and happy, they're going to enter a relationship with high expectations of their partner. And most likely it's not going to work out because they don't have anything to bring to the table. Okay. We as partners need to bring the equivalent to the table. It's not a tit for tat. It's reciprocity. It's complementarianism. That's a big expression when you talk about family dynamics and partners and marriages. Complementarianism is a term that defines your willingness to yield, to participate, to collaborate, to inspire, to impart to. In other words, as a couple, you're supposed to be exchanging something along the same lines. It can't be one person here doing everything, the other person is doing nothing. It's not going to work. So to keep that in mind, keep that in mind.
This is amazing. It's also a perfect way to end this Instagram live, and then also us going to a long weekend is doing some self-care. Put yourself first, which is really important for yourself and then for everybody around you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's my main thing. Take care of you so that when you show up for your children, your family, your partner, you're happy. You're good by yourself. You know, we shouldn't walk around in so much pain. There's enough to suffer in the world, right? So in that one place, that is a place of connection, that you can have intimacy with someone, meaning emotional intimacy, hopefully some spiritual connection as well, a place of safety, a place of trust, a place of loyalty. I think it's important for you. Really, you got to know who you are, right? So you can show up as such.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us again. This is amazing.
Thank you, Jen. I love being in this with you. Thank you so much for asking me to be a part of this and for doing 2 parts. This is the first time I've gotten invited back by anyone. So this is amazing. I think you really asked amazing questions. I think important questions, great conversation starters. So if you're listening to this live and you have a partner, sit with them and talk about it. Talk about some of the things that I said here. If you need any help, contact me at coachwithdaya@gmail.com or here on Instagram as at Coach with Daya. My followers that are listening to this now or later, please follow Jana's page, which is Million Marker, right? Million Marker. And if you are Jana's followers, follow me at Coaching with Daya. Let's exchange some ideas. If you're listening after the fact and you have some new questions, please DM me the questions and I'll be happy to connect with you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And you too have a long weekend, a great long weekend.
Yes, you too. Bye, Jana. Thank you. Bye.